Yo, what is up guys, welcome back to a brand new F1 2020 video. Today I'm gonna show you guys how to get faster around Monaco and how I achieved my world record lap both in the dry and in wet conditions. Eventually someone ended up beating it, as you can see, as a SMM City Sly Guy. Eventually beat it again by a few thousands, but he's using ABS, which is quite a big advantage around Monaco, so GG to him for pushing me during this time trial phase. But now let's head into the lap. You want to take a pretty wide exit to carry as much speed as possible onto the straight, even though the start finish line is pretty far away, so you're not going to gain really a lot of time by taking a wide entry. And you can see him all the way over to the left. Some people like to start the lap pretty far to the right, which is slightly faster initially, but I was more comfortable taking the line like this and preparing turn 1 like this. As we now head towards the braking zone, you can see I start braking just before the 50 meters. It's not really an apex or really a place I brake, it's a little bit more by feeling, so around 60 meters I would say, as we head then into turn 1. And as you can see here, literally a millimeter from the wall, we are so close to touching it. And this is pretty much a lot where Monaco is about. You have to get close to the walls, you have to be in the limit. You can see we're pretty far into the braking zone and we're still 100% braking. And you can do that because you have so much downforce, you're not going to lock up really fast. But then as you go a little bit later into the corner, you have to get off the brake. You can see it's going uphill here, so if you don't come off the brakes, you're going to get a massive snap of oversteer, so you have to do that. And then literally a few meters later, we're already going to upshift again to 4th gear to minimize wheel spin. As you can see here, basically as soon as we hit the apex on turn 1, we upshifted to 4th gear to minimize the wheel spin and stabilize the rear end. And I think you could see briefly before this, we went with both front wheels off track. And the reason it did not invalidate is because my rear left tire was still touching the asphalt. So that's how close it is to invalidating when you do a world record. Then as we move on to the exit, again we need to be extremely close to the wall. We need to use all the track available to do it smoothly. And we don't want to hit the wall as well, as first of all there's a risk of an invalidation and it just loses your time if you do it wrong. So you can win time by hitting the wall, but we want to do it cleanly, of course. Also, as it goes uphill, you need to be extremely smooth on the power, as when you go uphill, the balance shifts to oversteer. So you need to be extremely smooth on that exit, both with the steering wheel and the throttle inputs, and at the same time not hit the wall. As you can see as well, on both entry, mid corner and exit in turn 1, we were literally a millimeter away from the wall or invalidating on the apex. And it's going to be the same for almost every corner. Again, as you can see here, for this next left-hander, we're almost hitting the wall on the right-hand side. I didn't really like to go any further than that. You can see we have a few centimeters left, but I felt like if I went too wide, I went off the grippy line. So I didn't want to run too wide in here and kind of hug the inside a little bit more than the ideal line, basically. Also for this corner, if you remember my stow track guide, or not stow track guide, lol, I meant stow corner around the Silverstone track guide, I turn in before I start braking, and it's the same for this corner. You basically turn in before you start touching the brakes, and you don't want to hit the brakes too hard in this corner, as the rear will snap away. You need a lot of rotation around Monaco, so you need to be careful on the brakes in high speed corners, otherwise the rear will easily snap away. As we then move on to the apex, you can see as soon as I hit the apex I'm almost off the brakes, and I'm quite comfortable taking this inside curb. Some like to drive around it, but as I said before, I really felt like hugging the inside gives me the ideal grip. So it might not be the ideal line as like positioning wise, but I felt like there was slightly better grip taking this inside curb and then really hugging the inside. You can see we're millimeters away from hitting that inside wall, and yeah, that's the most comfortable I felt taking this corner. Then we're gonna go onto the throttle, open up a little bit, and then go all the way to the left on this basically left-hander, preparing the right-hander, because the right-hander feels like it's very tight. It's very high speed, but it's also a very tight corner, so you really need to prepare it. I keep it in 4th gear because I feel the most comfortable in 4th gear through here. Some people go up to 5th, but I like to keep it in 4th and then go on the exit of the right-hander up to 5th gear. So really important, you're all the way on the left on this one because you really need it for the exit of the next right-hander. And then as we start turning in, you can see on that exact moment we start applying a little bit of brake pressure as well to get the car rotated. Because it's such a tight and weird corner, you really need the rotation around here, because otherwise you're gonna get a big snap of oversteer on the exit, or you're just gonna understeer into the wall. So through this whole section it's just important to have a nice connection with your steering inputs and braking inputs, and it all needs to be in one fluent movement basically. So that's what we're trying to do here. And then as we hit this next right-hander on the apex, you can see very close to the wall. I don't want to take too much curb, so that's why I stay a little bit away from it. I felt like a little bit of curb helped me rotate the car, but if I went slightly close to the wall, it unsettled the car too much. So this felt perfect for me. Didn't want to take any more than that. Also, you can see no brake and no throttle inputs. We're basically rolling the car through here. You can see there's a little bit of banking as well, so we're using that to our advantage. And then on the exit, the banking falls away and you kind of go over a crest, which basically creates a lot of oversteer because all the load falls away suddenly, so it's easy to get oversteer, but you can see we're super close to the wall again. So because the crest is there, you need to have the right throttle input at the right time, because if you have too much throttle input over the crest, you're gonna lose the rear. So you really need to have a lot of throttle input before the crest and then kind of lift off a little bit and go with the track. And as you can see here, in real life they really go all the way to the right over this crest in between. We don't really need to do that in the game, as in real life you literally jump up if you go over that crest, and on the game you can just drive over it and the car will stick to the road. So we now go into the braking zone of the first corner in sector 2. We can see we're braking basically just before that white mark on the left hand side. This is probably the easiest corner to lock up, apart from the second last corner, as it goes downhill, so you create understeer, and then at the same time the track also falls away on the inside, so basically your right hand tire is hanging in the air. And this is one of those corners where ABS is extremely powerful, as basically ABS takes braking power away from one tire, so you can keep on braking on all 3 other tires without locking up. So that's why ABS is so powerful around this street circuit. And that's why a lot of assist and ABS users are maybe a little bit further off the pace on other tracks, but really good around this track, as it's just extremely powerful. As I've added some slow-mo in to be a little bit more precise, downshifting to second gear, and you can see all the way on the left hand side using all track again, as we move over to the left slowly after we moved a little bit out of that crest way, like they do in real life, but not as much. And then we're gonna slowly start turning in. We cannot put too much steering lock on very fast, because we're gonna lock up too much and has too much from the front tires early on. We're gonna lock up anyway, because basically the right hand front tire is gonna be hanging in the air, but we want to do it smoothly and basically not ask too much from the front tires, because we're just gonna wash out with understeer on the apex and lose a lot of time. So now we're gonna slowly start turning in and bleed off the brakes, as we're gonna lock up here. You can see right front starts just standing still in the air. It's not touching the ground basically. Close to the wall, as close to the wall as possible. We're gonna go down to first gear, and we're keeping a little bit of brakes on. You can see it's like one little stripe to get the car rotated. Because it's downhill, you're just gonna get so much understeer, so we really have to keep that little bit of brake on. It's gonna lock up the right front, but no matter what, it's so hard to not lock up the right front. You're gonna lock up more than not in this corner, and I think it's gonna be the same for the hairpin. It's a little bit easier in the hairpin, but it's gonna be the same issue again. where the left front is basically just bungling in the air. And now you can see we're coasting for a little bit, and then we're gonna start apply throttle. And as soon as we apply throttle, we short shift to second and third gear. And then we need to be a little bit careful here as the track again falls a little bit away as we lose the camber. And so easy, you can see we're already correcting a little bit the oversteer close to the left hand wall. And then we can go for a brief moment full throttle before we brake. So now going into the hairpin, actually 100% brake pressure, but we have to come off the brake extremely fast, otherwise we're gonna lock up. So we did went to 100% brake pressure, but you can see we're bleeding off very fast, and basically at this point we are completely off the brakes because we're already locking up and we have 1% brake on. And well, that's just because we're on full lock and the track falls away a little bit. Luckily we do hit the inside curb. You don't want to hit them with both rear tires, that's going to create a lot of understeer. You really want to hit them just with the inside left tires, so that you really gain a lot of rotation by doing that. I'm going to keep it in first gear and then short shift to second on the exit. So now on the exit you can see again left hand front tire bungling in the air, but we're not on the brakes, so that's not really an issue. You need to have the right throttle application to rear because these F1 cars have so much power that it's easy to get a little bit of wheel spin, and that will put you off guard for the next right-hander. It's downhill, so it's going to be really understeer. You can see we have 90 degrees steering lock on and a little bit of braking. See, like 0.5% brake on, and that's just to rotate the car. As we're also taking a lot of inside curb to rotate it, and you need to hit it exactly in the middle. If you hit it too early, I feel like you get just a little bit more understeer. It just doesn't feel right and it feels bumpy. So really want to hit it in the middle like I do right here, and then slowly get on throttle again without creating wheel spin or oversteer or understeer if you have too little too early throttle inputs. On the exit all the way to the wall again. You can see second gear, and absolutely don't hit this outside wall because it's gonna straight invalidate if you do. I'm gonna keep it in second gear, open up as much. You can see we get very close to the left hand wall again. Again, as I said before, don't hit it because it's gonna straight invalidate for hitting the wall. Keeping the brakes on to rotate the car, but at the same time don't be too aggressive on that brake, as it's easy to lose the rear if you put too much brake input or kill the minimum speed, which you're gonna need because it's a long exit and you have a lot of downforce on, so you really need a good exit. Also, I felt personally don't hit this inside curb because it's quite aggressive. It's just kills the minimum speed, unsettles the car, so don't hit that inside curb. I've tried it many times and every time I lost around half a tenth to a tenth. Then smooth on the throttle, as it's easy to spin up the inside rear wheel on this corner and go all the way up to the wall on the exit. I felt like maybe don't hit the curb. I hit it a little bit, I think so, but don't go all the way up to it, as again it's going to create wheel spin in such a heavy traction zone. As we then go through the tunnel, you want to go a little bit in the middle here so you can brake straight for this heavy traction, braking zone, sorry. There's going to be a full, probably the hardest braking zone on the circuit for this chicane. Braking around 75 to 80 meters. I would say probably one of the hardest corners to get right on this track, because it's really easy to invalidate. So brake as late as you can, as I said before. You can make up quite a lot of time by doing that. And then we're going to downshift to third gear, bleed off the brakes. If you brake too late, you're going to mess up the exit and minimum speed massively for it. So it's important to brake late, as it's such a hard braking zone. But at the same time, if you brake too late, you're going to mess up this wall section. So important to get as close to the wall as possible on the left, so you open up this exit. Because if you open up this exit, you're going to gain both minimum speed and exit speed. So that's really important to get right. You can see, even though we hit the apex, we're still on the brakes, because we're going to keep rotating to the left after this apex. So as you can see, we keep on the brakes and then go to this right hand, and you can see, I think we're literally so close to invalidating it. I think we got this perfect by the millimeter. As you can see, both front wheels are off, and probably just as we hit the asphalt again with the left front, that's when the rear left goes off track or on the curbstone. So honestly, this must have been so close and probably perfect track usage wise. As you can see now, we still have a little bit of brakes on, like 1%, 1-2%, to rotate the car and then get on the throttle as soon as the car is straight. You can see rolling for a few centimeters and then we start going on the throttle. So we're gonna be literally almost, again, a millimeter off the wall. We're so close to touching it. And as I said before, like in turn 1, we basically on the limit on entry apex, and then the apex again for the chicane, right-hander, track limit wise, and then on the exit we're literally millimeters away again from hitting the wall, which is what you need around Monaco. You need to use every single centimeter to get the maximum out of your lap time, to get the maximum minimum speed, exit speed, and entry speed. So again, very important to use the maximum possible. You can see we're not 100% throttle yet, but literally a few meters away from doing that. And then on to Tabac we go. I think it's called Tabac. I'm quite sure it's called Tabac. I'm really bad with corner names. It's again gonna be one smooth movement between braking inputs and steering inputs, as I said early on in the lap, in I think turn 3, where you really have to feel the connection between brake and steering input. So as soon as I start basically putting a little bit of brake input, you can see we're on 1%. That's basically where I start turning in, as you can see right here. And it's really important to not be aggressive with both braking and steering inputs, as this is one of the corners where you can easily lose the rear and hit the outside wall. You can see we've opened up the exit absolutely massively, as we can now very aggressively go on the throttle to get this good exit, as the exit is not extremely long, of course. For Monaco standards it is quite long, as the next corner is gonna be the right left, or the actual real corner is going to be the right left, where a lot of people have crashed. I think Max Verstappen in 2017 during FP3. And on the exit we're a little bit of oversteer, you can see a little bit of correction, we're pushing towards the wall. Again, short line through here, be smooth, and then use this curb to the maximum. And then on the outside we want to use all the track available. And this is such a tough corner to get right, as you need to use all of the outside track, so go into the wall, but if you hit it, it straight away invalidates. If you turn in too late, you're gonna tighten up the left-hander of the chicane. If you turn in too early, you're gonna hit the inside and completely mess up the wall corner. So it's so hard to get this turning point right. We're gonna go down to 4th gear on the apex, and then short shift to 5th. We got the turn in right, sorry, a little bit of a stutter. We got the turn in right, and we've pushed our way all the way to the right, up to the wall, so we can open up this next left-hander as much as possible and carry the maximum minimum speed available for ourselves. You can see going to the last corner, last sector, sorry, we're 5 thousandths down on our personal best. But this is where we're going to gain a lot of time, the minimum speed and the exit speed, as we carry a lot of momentum from taking the next right-hander so good, and then we can absolutely nail the next left-hander pretty easy, because we've set ourselves up so good. So again, as in the chicane before, basically in the middle sector after the tunnel, we're using absolutely everything on the track limits. As you can see, both front tires are off again, so you might think, oh, that's track limits, but because our rear tire is still touching the asphalt and the curb is basically angled in such a way, we can do this. In real life, obviously, you cannot take this line, as you will literally launch yourself up into the pit lane, more or less, or into the fence. So you cannot take this line, obviously, in real life, but on the game, the curbs or the sausage curbs are so soft that you can do this. So it's more about track limits and really getting launched up in the air by an aggressive curbstone. And we absolutely nailed it to the millimeter, I think. So again, just like after the tunnel, the chicane. As we then move on to the exit, push yourself all the way up to the wall. Don't hit it, because again, this is one of those corners. It's not as consistent. Sometimes it invalidates if you hit it, sometimes it doesn't. But if you hit it the wrong way, it is going to invalidate. So push yourself all the way up to the wall. We just about didn't hit it. You can see we're you basically can't even see if we're hitting it or not, but we didn't hit it, because if you would play in full speed you can see if I hit it or not. We didn't hit it, we absolutely nailed it. We're less than a millimeter away from hitting the wall, probably. As now we're gonna move on to the next corner. Really hard one for the people who don't use ABS, as you're gonna have to turn in so deep into the corner that's gonna be really easy to lock up. Braking point, there's literally no apex as well. This is just done by feeling, like some other corners on this track. No references, so you're gonna have to brake on the feeling, on your own feeling, and hope you get it right, basically. And then we're gonna slowly push ourselves towards the left-hand wall. You can see with a little bit more space available, and this is basically the braking zone where you need to get the braking efficiency right, because if you don't get the braking efficiency right in this phase of the braking, you're gonna carry too much minimum speed and you're gonna have to keep the brakes on for too long, and you're gonna lock up the right front because you haven't slowed down enough, and you're just gonna create understeer, go wide, mess up the minimum speed, mess up the exit. So this braking phase is extremely important that you get it right. And now we're gonna slowly start turbo braking into the corner, which is really hard around this corner because you're putting so much lock on to rotate the car, but at the same time you still need to slow down and trail brake just the right amount, because if you trail brake too much you will instantly lock up the right front, because it's such a long steering zone. Basically it's a double right-hander and it seems like a little bit like it never ends, so you need to trail brake just the right amount, and if you do too much you're gonna lock up. And this is one of those corners again where ABS is extremely powerful, because you can just keep on the brakes, keep rotating, and not lock up basically. So braking efficiency is so much better around this corner with ABS, because it takes so long to rotate and you need to trail brake a lot, and it just helps to have ABS around here. So I locked up many times going through here. This time we did get it right. You can see we're still on the brakes, and it's so easy to hit the exit here, the inside exit with your rear right, and spin out like Charles Leclerc in 2019 when he got out puncture while trying to overtake Nico Hülkenberg. Then on the exit here, be extremely smooth on the throttle, because you come from such a tight angle, and it's the second lowest minimum speed on this track apart from the hairpin. So really important to not get wheel spin, because if you get wheel spin here you're gonna kind of mess up your feeling for the next right-hander. So also don't hit the outside wall, because it's again gonna straight invalidate if you do hit it. So be smooth on the throttle, don't hit the outside wall, open up this next right-hander, get a turn in right, get a trail braking right, rotate just enough, and then be smooth on the throttle again on this exit. As the track falls away it's easy to get wheel spin, open the DRS, and then a short line to start finish to minimize the amount of meters done, and that's a 106.808 around Monaco. I think this Slimmy Slime guy, sorry I don't got his name right, we're gonna see it here. Oh, actually we cannot see it here because my big ass head is in front of it. But anyway, this was the world record at the time. The guy who I just beat did beat it again, but he had ABS, so as I said before, ABS really powerful around here. The second no assist runner was Alessio Di Capua, and he did a 106.98, which is 1.8 times slower than what we did. So here you can see the setup: 811 wings, so 8 on the front, 11 on the rear, 50 on throttle diff, 50 off throttle diff, 250 front camber, 140 rear camber, and then 0.05 front toe, 0.20 rear toe. I just felt slightly more comfortable with a 140 rear camber than with a 1 rear camber, 1 on the front spring, 6 on the rear spring, 1 on the front roll bar, 8 on the rear roll bar, 1 on the front ride height, 3 on the rear ride height, and then brakes and tire pressure, like always, 100% brake pressure, 50% brake bias, and then minimum tire pressure, as that's basically what we always run. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more. And yeah, this was a really intense track guide, probably one of the best I've done. I really went into detail, so I really hope you guys enjoyed this one and learned something from it. So make sure to like and subscribe if you did learn something from it. And well, hope I can do more in the future if you guys enjoy these. So see you guys next time. Ciao.